December 31st. New Year's Eve. The day the calendar resets and people pretend their mistakes didn't happen. Everyone was gathered in the house I bought 7 years ago. My stepdad gift to a family I thought was mine. The house still had my sweat in its beams. My signature on the mortgage. My back thrown out carrying drywall upstairs when the contractor bailed. Every nail was proof I tried. Proof I stayed. The table was full. Ham. Mashed potatoes. The fancy plates that only come out when Julia wants to play hostess. A centerpiece of pine cones and fake candles Chloe bought last minute from a clearance rack. People laughed. They chewed. They spilled red wine and didn't wipe it up. The kids were arguing over fireworks like they hadn't seen them every year since they could walk. Jason was holding court, all attitude and sarcasm, wearing his father's smirk like it was something he'd inherited in blood. Chloe was texting, curled up on the armrest like furniture. Julia buzzed around with her wine glass full, untouched, avoiding my eyes. The whole evening felt choreographed, a performance for some invisible audience. The kind where everyone plays family but forgets the lines halfway through. I stood behind my chair for a while, watching, listening, like I wasn't supposed to sit, like I wasn't part of the scene. Then Jason leaned toward me. He didn't whisper, not really. He just pitched his voice enough so only I would hear it, as if he wanted to carve the words under my ribs without anyone noticing. "Our real dad's better than you," he said, chewing, swallowing. "Always has been." He didn't blink, didn't smirk, just dropped it like a statement of fact. Like he was telling me the sky was blue. Like I hadn't poured 7 years into the crack in his family's foundation. Like I hadn't paid for every damn light in this house. I looked at him for a long moment. Not with anger. Not even with surprise. That part of me, the hopeful part, died years ago. I'd been expecting this line. Maybe not tonight, but eventually. You can feel it coming like a splinter pushing its way out of skin. I raised my glass. Not to toast. Just to end it. "By the way," I said, calm as cold steel, "I just sold this house. Happy New Year." The silence hit harder than any firework. Even the kids stopped talking. Chloe's fingers hovered above her phone screen like she'd been frozen mid-scroll. Julia's glass finally touched her mouth. But she didn't sip. The cousins looked around, confused. The music played on, some playlist Julia made for ambience, but it sounded like it belonged in a different room, someone else's party. I didn't sit down. I walked to the porch, lit a cigarette I hadn't touched in 6 years. Quit for them. But it didn't matter. The air outside bit at my face. The fireworks started behind the trees, spitting gold and red across the sky like the universe was trying to distract me from the truth. They all sat inside a house that no longer belonged to them. They just didn't know it yet. But I did. Because I made the call. I signed the papers. And I stopped asking what I was owed. My name is Alex. I'm 45. I met Julia during a volunteer project in Austin. I was helping rebuild a community center that had been gutted in a storm. She was passing out water bottles with that look women get when they've been hurt too many times to believe in kindness anymore. 2 kids. 1 ex-husband. No patience for small talk. I respected that. We started slow. Coffee on a bench. Quiet conversations. She had this way of laughing without showing her teeth. Like joy was something she didn't trust, but still wanted to try. She told me Kevin, her ex, had a good heart but a broken compass. He'd show up with grand gestures, disappear when life got inconvenient, gifts instead of groceries, apologies instead of rent. The kids were small then. Jason was 8. Chloe was 6. Back then, they still made room for me in their lives. Back then, they let me believe love was something you could earn by showing up. A year in, I sold my place, took what I had and bought a bigger house, renovated it myself, knocked down walls, rebuilt the kitchen, put in a new roof. Julia cried when I showed it to her, said no one had ever done something like that for her before. I thought that meant something. I thought we were building something solid. I never tried to replace Kevin. He was a ghost who came bearing gifts. Birthdays and Christmas. Never the rest. He'd breeze in with expensive shoes, iPads, and PlayStation gift cards. Leave before the batteries ran out. Jason worshipped him. Chloe cried every time he left. I was the man who made soup when they were sick. I was the one who fixed the leaking bathroom sink at midnight. I paid for Chloe's braces. I taught Jason how to check his oil. I paid the bills, mowed the lawn, drove them to school even when I had early meetings. I was never dad. Not once. Not even when Jason crashed his bike and I carried him 3 blocks to the ER. Not even when I took a week off to be at Chloe's dance recital. I was Alex. Just Alex. Their mom's guy. The one who paid rent and stuff. So when Jason said what he said, "Our real dad's better than you," it wasn't a betrayal. It was a diagnosis. It was the family finally admitting what they'd been feeling for years. That I wasn't part of them. That I was just a scaffold, holding up the house while they pretended Kevin would come back and be what they imagined. Julia didn't defend me. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not ever, really. She came out onto the porch an hour later, arms folded like armor. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from holding it in. She asked if I was serious. I told her yes. The house was sold. I'd already made the deal. The ink was dry. We had 30 days to vacate. She said I was cruel. Said I should have talked to her first. But talk is for people who listen. And Julia had stopped listening a long time ago. I watched her walk back inside, shoulders tight, jaw clenched, and I thought, she still believes this is about revenge. It isn't. This is about gravity. You can only hold the roof up for so long before your spine starts to crack. The rest of the evening passed in a haze. No one mentioned what I said. Chloe avoided me like I was diseased. Jason played it off like I was bluffing. Julia poured herself another glass of wine. The cousins went back to arguing about fireworks. At midnight, they all stood together on the front lawn and counted down. I stood at the back fence, alone, watching the neighbors set off Roman candles. Someone kissed. Someone cried. The sky exploded with noise. I just exhaled smoke and let the cold wind cut through my shirt. New year. New beginning. But not for them. For me. Because I finally understood the truth that every stepfather comes to learn. Too late, always too late. Love does not equal acceptance. You can give. You can sacrifice. You can carry everything. But if you are not the one who shares their blood, you will always be an intruder. You will always be mom's guy. Convenience. A bank account. Pair of hands. Until you're not. Until you say, enough. I never tried to replace Kevin. From the start, I understood what I was. Not their father. Not even a candidate. Just a man standing in the vacuum left behind by someone who knew how to exit a life without leaving fingerprints. Julia warned me early on. They still talk to him. He sends gifts. He visits when he can. She said it like a confession. Or maybe a warning. I took it as a challenge. That was my mistake. Kevin came around twice a year, sometimes 3 if guilt got the better of him. He showed up in a borrowed car. Hair gelled like he was still 25, sunglasses indoors. He never asked about report cards. Never showed up for parent-teacher night. But he always brought something with a charger. The kids loved it. Jason got a drone 1 year. Chloe got a gold necklace she wore for 6 straight months. He gave them symbols, trinkets, tokens of a love they imagined. And then he vanished, like a magician proud of his disappearing act. I stayed. That was supposed to matter. I paid for the groceries, the electric bill, the Christmas decorations, the gas that got them to school and back. I bought a used Honda for Jason when he turned 16. It wasn't flashy, but it ran. I paid for insurance, gas, and his first ticket. I drove Chloe to dance class 4 nights a week after work. Sat in the bleachers while other parents clapped and took pictures. I brought flowers. I cheered. I learned the names of the other girls in her troop. I did these things because I thought presence would win what blood had already claimed. First, it worked. Jason would call me from school when he needed something. Chloe would ask for help with homework. They thanked me, sometimes. And when they didn't, I told myself they were just kids. That gratitude was a lesson learned later. But over time, something changed. Their words got shorter. Their eyes wandered when I spoke. Chloe stopped calling me Alex, and started calling me nothing at all. Jason only spoke when he needed the car or a signature. I became a door they walked through, a card they swiped. Useful but invisible. I remember the first real cut. Not a big scene. Not a scream. Just a moment. I was walking past Chloe's room. The door was open. She was on the phone with someone. Laughing. I heard her say, "He's just Mom's guy. Like he pays rent and stuff." I stopped. Not because it shocked me, but because of how casually it landed. As if I wasn't someone she lived with. Someone who cooked her meals, paid for her phone, drove her to every dentist appointment. I stood outside that doorway for maybe a minute. Not eavesdropping. Just trying to see if she'd correct herself. Clarify. Say, "But he's okay." Or "He's always there for us." Nothing. Just laughter. A door creaking shut. A week later, Jason told a friend on speakerphone, "Once I move out, I'm forgetting him." He said it while I was making dinner. Didn't even blink when I looked up. I asked Julia that night, soft, not accusatory, if she ever talked to them about me, about the things I did, about how much of their lives I carried. She shrugged. "They're teenagers. They don't get it yet." I wanted her to say more. I wanted her to defend me, to remind them when I wasn't in the room that this house ran because I made it run. That the things they wore, the places they went, the safety they enjoyed, all of it came from me. She said nothing. She never did. And I began to realize something cruel. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just slow. Like mold creeping beneath the floorboards. That I was the only one in the house who saw what I did as love. To them, it was obligation. Worse, it was expected. One night, Chloe came home drunk. She was 16. Reeked of vodka and bad decisions. I found her stumbling in the kitchen at 2 a.m., opening and closing cabinets like they owed her something. I walked her to the couch, handed her a glass of water, sat with her while she mumbled about someone named Tyler. When she sobered up, I told her she was grounded. No car, no parties, no exceptions. She looked at me like I'd grown horns. "You're not even family," she said. "Don't tell me what to do." She said it flat. No heat. Just truth as she saw it. Julia came downstairs after. I told her what Chloe said. She sighed, sat on the armrest and said, "They're just being teenagers. Don't take it personally." But I did. Of course I did. Because I wasn't mad. I wasn't even hurt. I was done. That night I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan. Listening to Julia breathe beside me like everything was fine. And I realized I wasn't angry at the kids. I was angry at myself. For believing that showing up would be enough. That if I gave long enough, hard enough, it would change how they saw me. But giving without recognition isn't love. The servitude. The next few months blurred. I worked. I paid. I drove. I answered texts when they needed help. Jason crashed his car. I paid half to get it fixed. Chloe wanted to change studios. I called to get the schedule. But I stopped waiting for thanks. Stopped hoping Julia would step in, say something when they dismissed me. She didn't. And that silence, that quiet permission, started to rot whatever patience I had left. It wasn't one moment that broke me. It was all the little ones. Hearing Chloe refer to Kevin as Dad after he forgot her birthday. Watching Jason text him on Father's Day while sitting at a table I built with my own hands. Seeing Julia laugh when Kevin made some charming joke during his 5-minute drop-off visit. Like she'd forgotten how he left her broke and crying for months. I wasn't being ignored. I was being erased. Bit by bit. One eye roll at a time. So I made a plan. Not to hurt them. Not to escape. But to leave with dignity before there was nothing left of me. I opened a folder on my computer. Labeled it Exit. Inside, mortgage documents, account numbers, insurance info, car titles. I made a list. Mortgage, mine. Utilities, mine. Chloe's dance tuition, paid from my card. Jason's insurance, auto-drafted from my account. The house was in my name. Always had been. They lived inside a life I built, and they treated me like I was squatting in theirs. So I called a realtor. Quietly. No fuss. No panic. The house sold in 2 weeks. It went faster than I expected. Too fast. Julia didn't know. Not yet. The kids didn't notice. Of course they didn't. I still cooked dinner. Still fixed the sink. Still paid the bills. But something in me had shifted. I was no longer trying to earn their love. I was preparing to leave with my spine intact. I told Julia 3 days before New Year's. We were standing in the kitchen. She was cutting peppers. I was washing a pan. I dried my hands. Looked her in the eye. I'm moving out next month, I said. The house isn't ours anymore. She blinked. What are you talking about? I sold it, I said. It's done. She dropped the knife. You what? I sold the house. I've been listening to the kids. I finally believe them. I'm not family, so I'm stepping out. She looked like she'd been slapped. You're just giving up? No, I said. I'm letting go. She cried. Of course she did. Said I was overreacting. That I was punishing them. That I was ruining everything over words spoken by teenagers. But she didn't deny the words. Didn't say they were wrong. Didn't tell me I was family. That was all I needed to hear. Or not hear. On New Year's Eve, when Jason said what he said, "Our real dad's better than you," I didn't flinch. I had already left them. Quietly, emotionally, financially. All that was left was to say it out loud. So I raised my glass. And I told the truth. I didn't slam doors. Didn't raise my voice. No theatrical departure. I just left one layer at a time. Quietly, methodically, like a man peeling back bandages he already knows will bleed. I packed my things in stages. Not the obvious stuff, not yet. Just the essentials. Tools, paperwork, winter coats I knew no one else would touch. I cleared the top drawer of the bathroom vanity, the one that always jammed, and boxed up the spare razors and the last birthday card Julia gave me. 4 years old. Blank inside except for love you always. She had written it fast. You could tell. The house was sold. The move-out date was set. But the family stayed in the dark. That was my final gift. A clean cut. No warning. No negotiation. Just absence. I told Julia 3 weeks before closing. We were at the sink. I was scrubbing a pan that someone else had let soak for 2 days. She asked me what was wrong. I told her I was leaving. That I had sold the house. That it was over. She stared at me like I was speaking another language. Her mouth moved. I saw the question forming, but no sound came out. When she finally found her voice, it wasn't anger. It was disbelief. You're joking, she said. I dried my hands. I'm not. She looked around the kitchen, like maybe the cabinets would say something that would explain it better than I just had. But the kids. Exactly, I said. The kids. I reminded her what Jason said. The fireworks. The smirk. The sentence that closed the book I'd been trying to write for 7 years. Julia shook her head, blinked hard. You can't mean this. But I did. I told her I wasn't leaving out of bitterness. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I was just done building a home for people who still looked at me like I was temporary. You've all been saying I'm not family, I said. I finally heard you. That was the first time she cried. Not like mourning. More like someone watching a crack crawl across a mirror, realizing it's already too late to stop it from shattering. She asked if we could fix it. I said we already tried. And then I left the room. The next few weeks felt like watching my own funeral in slow motion. Jason didn't speak to me unless he needed something. Chloe walked past me like I was air. Julia stayed close but distant, like someone tethered to a sinking ship. I cooked dinner less. Started eating out more. I stopped fixing the loose step on the back porch. Stopped checking the air filter. Stopped reminding them to move the trash bins to the curb. I watched the small chaos rise like weeds through concrete. No one said anything. They just adjusted. Like the house was learning how to live without me. And I was watching it happen. Jason left first. Not in protest. Not in sorrow. He left because the lights in the hallway weren't turning on anymore, and he didn't like how that felt. He packed his things in a single afternoon. Julia didn't stop him. He moved in with Kevin. That was the plan anyway. He lasted 3 weeks. Kevin had no Wi-Fi, no groceries, a mattress on the floor and no working dishwasher. He texted Julia asking where the detergent was kept. She sent a thumbs-up emoji and cried in the laundry room. Chloe stayed. She still had school, still needed rides, but she stopped talking. No good morning, no goodbye, just silence, cold and practiced. I found out through a neighbor that she was spending weekends at her grandmother's. Strict house, early curfews, chores. One misstep and she lost her phone for 3 days. She called it prison in a Snapchat story I wasn't meant to see. Julia called me 2 days before I moved out. The power had gone out. The breaker box was tripping and the fridge was melting. "Can you come take a look?" she asked. I paused. Then I said, "You chose their father. Let him pay the bills." She didn't respond, just hung up. That was the last time I heard her voice for weeks. The day I moved out, no one helped. I rented a van, loaded it myself, box by box, room by room. I left behind the things they'd need, furniture, appliances, even the blender Julia loved. I didn't want war. I just wanted out. Chloe watched from the window, didn't wave. Jason didn't show. Julia stayed in the kitchen, pretending to make tea. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. It wasn't anger that kept me from turning around. It was clarity. I had held the roof above their heads for 7 years. And in return, they had handed me silence, contempt, conditional presence. So I gave them what they wanted, my absence. The first 2 weeks alone were quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel like peace. Just the aftermath of an explosion you weren't sure would happen. But it did. And now there was nothing to mop up except my own certainty. I slept on a mattress on the floor for the first week. No bed frame yet. No nightstand. Just me, a lamp, and a pile of unopened boxes. I ordered takeout. I watched old movies with the volume low. I walked to the corner store every night just to see other faces. I didn't miss them, but I missed what I thought we were. That was the difference. A month later, Julia emailed me. Not a text, not a call, an email. Subject line: "Do you still have Jason's insurance info?" No greeting, no apology, no warmth. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes before closing the tab. Didn't reply, didn't delete it either. Just let it sit there. An unanswered letter from the past. A week after that, Chloe texted. One word: pancakes. I stared at it. Didn't know what to say. She followed it with another: "I miss Saturdays." That one stung. Not because it was cruel, but because it wasn't. It was real. It was the first crack in the wall she had helped build between us. I waited a day before responding. "I miss them too," I typed. "But things have to be different." She didn't reply, but I saw she read it. That was enough. For now. Jason came next. Out of nowhere. "Can we talk?" No punctuation. Just a question hanging like smoke. We met at a diner halfway between my new place and wherever he was staying now. He didn't perform. Didn't posture. Just sat there in a hoodie, looking 10 years older than the last time I saw him. "I was wrong," he said, and I believed him. But belief isn't the same as return. I told him we could talk. We could get coffee. We could start over, but not from the same place. The door wasn't closed, but it was no longer the front door of a house I didn't live in anymore. He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't ask for money. That mattered. I still think about the house. Sometimes I pass it by accident. The new owners repainted the front door. The porch light is brighter. The curtains are different. I wonder if the new man inside is being thanked. Or if he's already learning what I learned too late. That a stepfather lives on borrowed time. On conditional presence. On silence that sounds a lot like permission, until it turns into abandonment. I didn't leave because I stopped loving them. I left because they never started. The thing about leaving is no one believes you've actually done it. Not at first. They think it's temporary. A stunt. Some middle-aged performance art meant to guilt them into a family meeting and a warm apology that arrives just in time for Sunday dinner. They think you'll come back. Because men like me always do. Men who pay, who fix, who stay. Stepfathers with good posture and tight smiles. We always come back. Until one of us doesn't. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment across town. Beige walls. Thin carpet. No yard. Just a parking space and a locked mailbox I never checked. The place smelled like dust and someone else's regrets. But it was mine. The bills were mine. The bed was mine. The quiet, especially the quiet, was mine. At first, I expected the silence to crush me. But it didn't. It held me, like a room without expectations. I didn't have to earn it. Didn't have to explain why I wasn't smiling. Didn't have to hear my name said with rolled eyes or whispered behind doors. There was no Julia reminding me to be patient. No Chloe slamming doors because I said no to a concert. No Jason sighing through a mouth full of food I cooked, waiting for his real father to text back. Just the hum of the fridge. The low rumble of distant traffic. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. 3 months passed before Jason called again. He didn't text. He didn't email. He called. The sound of his voice surprised me, not because it had changed, but because it hadn't. He sounded like the same kid I used to drive to soccer practice. The one who used to complain about his shin guards being too tight and ask if we could stop for burgers afterward. Now he was 20. A man. Or trying to be. Hey, he said. I said nothing. It's been a while. Still nothing. I just wanted to say I get it now. About everything. I sat down. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because I didn't want to move until I knew what he meant. Living with Dad, it's different. He's not who I thought he was. He's not you. I didn't speak. I let the words come. I used to think you were just trying to control everything. But now I see you were the only one holding things together. When you left, the roof didn't just sag. Collapsed. I heard him breathe in. I'm sorry, Alex. Really. There it was. Not an explosion. Not a breakdown. Just truth. Soft. Belated. Unsteady. I didn't say I forgave him. I didn't say it was okay. I said, thanks for telling me. He asked if I wanted to get coffee. I said yes. We met the next morning. Neutral ground. A place with bad espresso and worse music. I watched him walk in, head down, sleeves pulled over his hands like he was bracing for something. He didn't hug me. I didn't expect him to. We sat, talked, not about the past, not right away. We talked about school, about money, about how hard it is to keep a job when your references are your friends' dads. We talked about how Kevin kept saying, I'll help next month, until next month never came. I listened, not as a father, just as a man who used to be there. Jason didn't ask for anything. Not a check. Not a favor. Just time. And I gave it to him. That's all I ever wanted. Really. Not love. Not praise. Just recognition. A week later, Chloe showed up. No warning. No message. Just a knock on my door at 7 p.m. She looked older. Not just in her face. In the way she carried her backpack, like it weighed more than books. Her hair was different. The sweatshirt she wore was one I'd bought her 2 birthdays ago. She never wore it then. Now it looked lived in. I was nearby, she said. She wasn't. She lived 2 cities away, starting her first semester at college. I missed your pancakes, she said. I let her in. She stood in the doorway for a long time, taking in the space. The absence of noise. The walls that didn't have her name carved in them. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. But she looked at me with eyes that finally understood the distance they had built. One slammed door at a time. I thought you'd come back, she said. I did, I said. Just not the way you thought. She sat on the couch. Quiet. Still. I was angry, she said. Because I thought you were trying to take his place. I wasn't. I know. Now. I nodded. She reached into her bag. Pulled out a photo, one of those cheap dance team snapshots from 5 years ago. We were both in it. She was smiling mid-spin. I was in the background, clapping. My tie was crooked. I found this when I moved, she said. I kept it. I didn't know what to say. She didn't wait for a reply. I don't want to go back to how it was, she said. But I don't want this to be the end either. It doesn't have to be, I said. But it has to be different. She nodded. That's the thing about leaving. It makes space. Not for revenge. Not for apologies. For truth. For boundaries. For clarity. I didn't burn the house down. I just stopped holding it up. And when the pieces fell, they finally saw how much of their weight had been resting on a man they didn't think they needed. Julia never called. Not once. She sent a card in the spring. No return address. Just a plain white envelope with "Thank you for everything" written in her handwriting. No signature. No date. Just closure. If that's what you want to call it. I still see Jason sometimes. We get coffee every few weeks. He's learning how to stand on his own. He doesn't ask for help. He tells me stories about work, about friends, about trying to fix the radiator in his apartment. He's figuring it out. That's enough. Chloe and I text. Sometimes she sends pictures of the pancakes she's trying to make. They never look quite right, but I always tell her they do. We talk on the phone every now and then. Not about the past. Not directly. But I hear it in the way she says thanks when I answer. I hear it in what she doesn't say. People ask me if I'd do it again. If I'd step into that role, the thankless one, the invisible one. The man who gives and gets mistaken for a stranger. I used to say no. Now I say this, only if they understand the cost. Only if they understand that love without respect is nothing but performance. That calling someone family without honoring them is like building a house on sand and calling it shelter. I don't need titles. I don't need to be dad. But I will never again be the man who begs to be seen while holding up everyone else's weight. Now I live alone. A small place. Quiet. Honest. No photos on the walls. Just books and tools and a kitchen that smells like coffee in the mornings. No one slams the doors. No one forgets I'm in the room. No one calls me, just the guy who pays rent and stuff. I exist. And that's enough. So here's the question. The one I keep circling back to in the dark. When the streetlight flickers and the quiet gets too loud. Was I wrong? To walk away. To stop carrying the weight when the only thanks I got was silence? Was I cruel? Or did I just stop lying to myself? Tell me, would you have stayed?